Hey, how's everybody? Thanks for coming back here. Day 233, 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tom Nyback. We're here talking about black issues in America, um, growth, prosperity, or the lack thereof on a lot of levels. Um, I'm hoping that, you know, I have this burden for how black people think in America, whether they are rightly, correctly assessing their environment, this nation, what it is, what it means, what we hope it will accomplish in the land for us, and how do we get it done? Uh, what do we focus on? What do we need to cast off? What do we need to adopt to make life better consistently for the majority of us? Have zero incarceration, zero uh, police shootings. I saw a graphic thing on CNN right here in my home state. You I got to admit that they say the black man had a gun and he ran away, he gets shot in the back and all that. But you know, what's the thinking on both sides? I don't understand cops shooting people running away. That's a different thing. I don't know about that, but also, why is the black man having a gun on him and all this stuff? So there's some issues there. Concerned about white mind, white thinking, privilege, power, expectation of favor. This is the group that um, created the control of this nation anyway for themselves, and they continue to administer it. Um, will we see a day when that influence or that control and concern that they have to hold on? Will we ever see that lesson or abate, diminish in the land? That's a hard sell, right? Financial literacy, another point of mine. It's in my personal life and for black people, just knowing how money works, you know, what happened. Growing up, I believed, okay, I'd work for a certain amount of time, and then retire, live well, you know, and stuff like that. But you live long enough, you see that the nation doesn't facilitate that without you making some living life with a certain level of intention. And are black people living with that economic intention in their lives? You know, hard sell because we're so distracted nowadays and presented with so many choices. Um, we don't understand, I think, in general, how there are very powerful influences, scientists in the land tinkering with the monetary system, in such a way uh, to focus negative energy at certain segments of society. Do we understand that, how that is working here in America? Very, very important issue. So I want black people to critique and take some time to think about money and how it happens, how it works for them in America. I'm inspired a lot to do a lot of this work by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. He articulates this stuff much better than I can. I've read 3 of his works. He's got plenty of material on YouTube, not hard to find. And if I want to point to him for the source of understanding how this works. But I read three of his works that got me really started, helped me to actually articulate the message and wade through my own angst here in America as a black person. A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice. And Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America. Powernomics.com. You find Dr. Anderson at Powernomics.com. His book is called Powernomics. Behind me, you see the hashtag #US2 symbol. You'll find black women supporting one another. That's at Facebook. I haven't checked into that in a little while. But check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, for kind of a black Facebook experience. And if you can't find your flavor anywhere on the World Wide Web, do what I did. Start your own little project and commit that. Make some outrageous goal. I said 365 days. That's a big chunk. That's a big commitment. But after a while, whatever your thing is, let it wear on you. At least 30 days, something consistent, and go from there. And finally, we do have story time. And also, I have a private email list. It's easy to get on and off of it. We can communicate, put a comment in or reply, make comments. We'll connect if we're intended to connect. We'll connect. I can put you on the private email list. The content's no different, but it does give you can interact directly with me instead of waiting for comments and things like that. And finally, we have story time. Uncle Tom's Cabin. I had 2 subscribers that got this book and were surprised at me. Look how thick that is. All right, I thought Uncle Tom's Cabin was maybe, I don't know, a little pamphlet of black abolitionist propaganda at best. Yeah, but this is a novel. This is a big story. Changed my life reading it. So I regurgitate some of my views and angles on that through the year. I'm committed to finishing that book on the last 120 some days we got left here. All right, part 2 out of a Black History Reader, page 135, if you have the text. And we're talking about Obama's legacy. And portions of yesterday's conversation were kind of centered around black passivity, black impotence in the land. You know, we got black leader of the free world, powerful man, black man in the White House and the seat of power, his button, his finger on nuclear weapons and stuff like that, armies there. He had a lot of issues to wade through, big financial restructuring, rescuing the nation, bringing us through those issues for his 2 terms. But passivity and impotence for black people, I think, almost was epitomized by this man's presidency and his lack of bringing any focus, any attention, serious attention to the plight of black Americans in the nation. Where other groups went up, did better and stuff, black folks fell through the cracks and were reeling and disillusioned by the potential that we saw in this man. That disclaimer: I did not vote. I'm not a big voter, but that's another conversation. So, but there is an expectation to see a black man there let's do something. And I think the proof, though, is not me talking to you here after the fact, hindsight 2020. It's the fact that, after his 2 terms, he's trying to support Hillary Clinton. The black base seemed to scatter and run for cover and embraced, uh, to a great degree, our current president. And wow, like we're, I mean, politically overall in the nation, we're starting to lose viable choices for presidency. But to think that this black man had the potential to, I don't know, engage, represent, bring attention to, and after 8 years, black base just migrated right on away from the traditional Democratic support in America. That says something, and embraced um, a choice that really wasn't too much better on moral grounds. So that's challenging. The impotence and passivity, though, getting back to that point, I want to illustrate that a little bit by a little story of my own. You may have heard of something called Section 8 housing vouchers and things like that. It's almost like hitting the lottery, and all this stuff. It's really just a pathway to socialize socialism housing, which is what it really is. But it's this housing administered by the government. You live well and all that, but your, your accountability is a lot. It's not a bad thing, but let's call it what it is. But anyway, I was given one of these things. But it happened when I was at this crossroads and all that, and I couldn't take advantage of it. It's a long story. Couldn't take advantage of it. But then I'm thinking, as we're doing this, we're talking about Black Power, Black President, and stuff like that, and the Constitution, amendments, things. And the one common thread, there's a couple, but one common thread is that how Black people are this silent participant, always receiving the good intention of white folks and all this stuff, and it's just inappropriate. We are consistently the focus of conversation, attention, behind the scenes, and this powerful group says, "Oh, well, this is good for them," and then they bring it out, they roll it out uh, for us, in quotes, and whatever is presented is quickly snatched up by all these immigrants and people of color and diversity and stuff like that. They, it's even like I got this voucher, this great opportunity here in America and stuff like that. Very rare, hard to get, and all this foolishness. And even when I went to employ this, because it's really hyped up, nobody wanted it. Nobody's cared about that. I would have to really work hard, and I was in a period of my life I just couldn't put that kind of energy in. Right now, had I been right in this epicenter of this conversation about this benefit for me, I could have offered my take and how to position this thing so I could take advantage of it. But no, there was these well-intentioned people, good people. They're not bad folks. They didn't do a bad thing. They did a right thing the wrong way. And that's what is happening for black folks consistently in America. We looked at the creation of the Constitution. If you look at James Madison notes, there's a lot of conversation about black folks in there and whatnot. But there's no black people in the room representing that. Look at amendments and stuff like that. Well, you got a whole room full of white folks having their little conversation and meeting and feeling morally right and in position and all this stuff. And they roll it out. Black folks don't benefit from that conversation. On ad infinitum, right? Um, we got black president. Great, good. Wow, this country is finally, all of the racial barriers are gone. They've disappeared. I don't think so, because the presidency, being that power, um, listen, I said this yesterday, that presidency, higher echelons, especially of political power, are going to be governed by the white male paradigm every time. It's going to be a long, long time coming to get away where the presidency is some space where America's represented, but the personality of the individual uh, holds sway. I think we see that with our current president. This is 2019, where that is kind of the space, but that's a white man doing that. So, right, he's got white supremacist support and all this white agenda, and it's okay, right? Do you notice that, right? You, so Barack Obama, had he had this black banner on his march to the White House, he wouldn't have got far, not that far at all. So his legacy. I said yesterday, he didn't get an A+ in his presidency. It wasn't a stellar thing. We're going to give him credits for cleaning up Iraq and Afghanistan, or recession and whatnot. But he still could have made. He had some mass shootings as well. He could have made a stand, said something. His presidency mirrored much, it was like almost a carryover. Dr. Anderson points this out, kind of a carryover of the benign neglect policies under Nixon, going back to 1969, 1970, where the idea where Moynihan, I think it was his name was, under Nixon, was like, it's time to practice some benign neglect. This issue, black issue, is over with, and let's move forward now. Um, let black folks come along, on their own strength. Benign neglect. But my picture is like, if you're in a burning house and the place is on fire, do you practice benign neglect? Do you harmlessly uh, go into denial for a burning house over a desperate situation, right? The black people are in a desperate situation every day, moment by moment in America, right? We're distracted, and we're pulled into kind of a false sense of security in our liberty and having a job and all that stuff. But what we don't understand, we are still very much on the plantation. still are giving our time, our resources to massa in a whole lot of ways. We're not self-determining ourselves in the land. It takes more and more of our time and resources just to have some quiet time away to do something productive um, for ourselves, something that we want to create or have, right? You know, and it takes a long time for us to get the courage and the elbow room to make some of this happen. A lot of stuff is laid out before black folks, a lot of traps and pitfalls, right? There's already many naturally occurring in the American landscape, but then you have the intentional stuff with incarceration, drugs, violence, poor living conditions. Those are very intentional, those are focused assignments and agendas against black folks. Um, that that's a challenge in America, land of the free, home of the brave. And this benign neglect, that Obama has kind of ran with, supported, you know, also went to help and assist other groups, wanting to participate in the wealth and prosperity and privileges in the nation. You know, with this benign neglect, the United States government excluded blacks from public policies by name. It gave an illusion that they were included um, in these categories that Dr. Anderson and myself rail against: minority, people of color, diversity. Those umbrella terms, when uh, when black people need to be the focus, need to be uh, understood in how um, in receiving benefits and privileges in the nation. You know, with this president who's taught constitutional law, we wonder um, with his relationship to that. Granted, he's probably is crunching a lot of maybe a lot of higher structured stuff as far as the Constitution and law and dissecting movements in the nation, time periods, and what like that. The source, the root of this document, the rules of how America runs, much of that's created out of conversations on how black people would be treated in America and the importance of black folks, how and to what degree black people would participate in America. You have all that conversation going on, and a black teacher of constitutional law would not feel some conviction about uh, uh, bringing some positive attention, positive change to black people in America. That's a problem. Uh, he continued this legacy of black people getting symbols, continued the idea of being okay not getting the resources, the wealth. We had a symbol of power in the White House, but we didn't get power. We get symbols of freedom and stuff like that, but we're incarcerated and working harder, uh, seeing the erosion of the buying power of the dollar. All these things are going on. You know, that's the legacy continuing there for Barack Obama. Finally, what we'll end with this is, you know, if a black man, a black person is going to be in the White House and not exclusively help and participate in bettering the lives of black folks, then what will uh, later generations of white presidents do, with that reality? You if a black man got in office and position and did nothing, then what, what's our responsibility now? How motivated do we have to be when we hear murmurings from um, the general population, black population in America? How much energy do we have to put in? President Obama didn't do a damn thing. He did a lot of stuff for everybody, but he didn't do anything exclusively, specifically for black people by name. So that's a challenge with his legacy. I mean, our current president, he's got white supremacist support. Um, he disregards uh, information and reports from his intelligence community um, about um, other nations encroaching on the freedoms of America. He's all skeptical and whatnot, and he's vocal about it. He's public about it. He owns it. You gotta kind of respect that about this president. At least he knows he's not under the covers or in the closet about it. He's very transparent about his position, his view, how he feels about his uh, his administration, and the weight of that. You know, that's the times we live in. So, Obama's legacy, hey, he came in to the nation at a tough time and uh, handled it. He was going to be the man responsible for making or breaking America. I'm going to give him that. He can't escape that. We're going to give him an A for his presidency, but we're not going to give him an A plus. A plus would have been President Obama having a capstone of finally bringing the attention to black issues in America and bringing about some change and initiating some policies to make life better for black people overall. Uh, I'll be glad to hear your comments about President Barack Obama's legacy and whatnot, and how you feel about it. It'll be interesting to see. We're kind of in hindsight. 4 years later, um, I can guess what people may say about the current president, but looking back on the president's 2 terms, President Obama's 2 terms, I'd like to be interested to hear some of your feedback. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. I'm going to cut right here. Don't want to hold you hostage. Day 233 out of the way. 365 days towards racial change. Please come back tomorrow. Let's see what kind of trouble we can get into. Bye-bye.